welcome. Thank you for joining us. It's the moment of truth, the 2018 general election, and we have been waiting for this moment for 2 years for some people. So we're really excited about our live coverage today. You're watching Decision 2018, the News 2 live election night coverage of the gubernatorial election. Tonight we have some panelists that we are very, very happy and proud to have with us. We're going to be talking about various topics, and we hope that you tune in. We're going to be here as the results come in. You're going to get live updates from the polls, and I'm going to tell you exactly what you can expect from the show as we head deeper into the night and waiting for these results to come in. We're also going to have several interviews that we want to share with you with the gubernatorial candidates, so we'll have that as we head into the show. Let me introduce to you our panelists for tonight. We have to my right, Senator Positive T.A. Nelson. Senator Nelson is a 7-term senator. So he's been at the legislature for a long time, 14 years, if I'm not mistaken. And he's a current member of the 32nd legislature. Senator, welcome. It's Senator Nelson's first time with us.
Very happy to be here.
Yeah, and we're happy to have him. And I was joking around, Senator, that because you're not running, we get to have you, so your loss is kind of our gain for tonight's election.
Usually I'm on the other side of things, so this is very different, but I appreciate the opportunity for sure.
We're really happy to have you here tonight with us. Our next guest is Siobhan Thomas. Siobhan is also a first-timer for our News 2 live election night coverage, but we're really happy to have her because Siobhan offers some really interesting insights. She's president-elect of the Virgin Islands Bar Association. She starts her term in December, I believe.
Yes.
And she's also, she works with the Hamilton Miller and Berthasell law firm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good
So
evening.
We're happy to have Siobhan with us. Welcome, Siobhan.
Thank you.
And of course, we have Dr. Alexander Randall, the fifth. Let's not forget. He's the fifth in his family to have that name, and we like to remind everybody. He's a professor of communication at the University of the Virgin Islands, but he has also taught at Princeton, Columbia, and the University of Maryland. He was with us in more election nights than he cares to remember.
All of them.
All of the election nights.
As far as I can remember, I'm always here.
Even before I started hosting the election night coverage.
Correct.
Right. So we're happy to have our panelists here with us tonight, and we try to really make sure that we have like a diversity of perspectives and opinions and backgrounds. So tonight, let's just enumerate what we have for you. We're going to have live updates on the numbers from the election offices as the jump drives come in containing the tally of votes. We're also going to have live interviews in the field, as well as in the election system offices. We're going to have interviews with various gubernatorial candidates, as well as man-on-the-street interviews, just regular Virgin Islanders telling us what they think about this 2018 gubernatorial election. Now, I have to say, for the interviews with the gubernatorial candidates, we extended the invitation to everybody. We did not get, however, gubernatorial candidate Adela Fonsi Donistorg. We tried to get him. He really tried his best to work with us. However, the schedule did not permit. As you know, things are really heating up, and their schedules are tightening as we head.
Believe it.
As we head into election day, so we weren't able to get him, but he did try his best. Mr. Mosler, Warren Mosler, declined after missing a call from TV2, and for him, I think it was also a schedule issue. So we did try to get them, and I think that they also wanted to share their views with us, but unfortunately, schedule did not permit that to happen. So we're really looking forward to a lively discussion tonight. We made sure, as I said, that our panel is diverse. We have a lawyer, a professor.
I'm not lawyer.
I'm not lawyer. A professor
Much better.
at the University of the Virgin Islands, and a lawmaker. So we're looking forward to an interesting discussion. Let's just kick off this discussion with some interviews that we did with Virgin Islanders. Like I said, we interviewed people on the street and just ask them in general what they think about this election. Were they encouraged to vote? It seems to me that there is a heightened sense of civic duty in this election year, at least on the mainland, but also in the Virgin Islands. We're seeing a lot of energy and excitement among voters who really said that they wanted to go out to vote. So let's see what we have in terms of our first.
Well, I'm gonna try a thing, I'm gonna try a thing, try to put a little work into it, that might help the place, In reality, we are gonna put a little vote, if we want the best out of the island. But if we don't put a vote, we ain't gonna get nothing good out of it, So I think as a person living here, I've born raised here in the Virgin Islands, I should put some support, to the right people. Because right now we underground. We need to get more things for the children, schools and stuff, We need more support. So we need a governor who gonna put support and senators who gonna put good support for the children and families, you know what I mean? So we need something.
You can go back 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Every time election, everybody gets a little excited, everybody gets anxious. At the end of the day, everybody's looking for improvement. This is my personal opinion about the election. I think at the end of the day, everybody's looking for transparency. Everybody's looking for better health care. Everybody's looking for jobs. Everybody looking for better pay for teachers and doctors and nurses. It's all for the better. We elect people in office in order to have a much better community, a much better environment. Me being a business owner downtown, my thing is tourism. Tourism is my thing. And whoever becomes governor of the Virgin Islands, I would truly hope he or she would put emphasis on building tourism.
It's a very important one. Just like the main one up in America for the president and the Congress. This one is just as important for us down here.
How come?
Well, I feel we need some changes in our legislature. I feel we need some people in the legislature to stand up for St. Thomas. I don't want a St. Thomas, St. Croix battle, but I think we need some stronger senators for St. Thomas, to represent St. Thomas. Like St. Croix have strong senators for themselves.
I feel as though everyone has started a little too late to try to do things for the community. Meaning, I felt as though they should have done things January, February, March, April, but now they want to start like a couple weeks before elections. And I'm saying that because look at the modular schools. The students started school late. I'm not sure what happened that they started late, but last year we lost so much time because of the hurricane. This year we lost so much time because they didn't have the equipment ready. So like what happened during the summer and things like that.
There you go. So what did you guys think of the views of the people that we talked to? I think they commented on changes in the legislature was what they wanted to see, as well as school delays. Some of them had a problem with that. The fact that we had scheduled school openings and then they got delayed and then delayed some more and then delayed some more.
Absolutely. I mean, as a parent, it's difficult for your kids to go back to school October 15. That's unacceptable no matter what happened last year with these storms. I don't think anyone could truly accept that.
One gentleman spoke about he wanted to see some change, strong voices, and I realized he was from the St. Thomas district. He seemed like he said they want more people standing up on the people's behalf. So there seems to be a sentiment that, and I've heard it before, where the people feel like the senators are no longer carrying out the desires of the people. And that's a very important statement.
He actually said in St. Thomas. He said the St. Croix senators are strong, but the St. Thomas senators weren't. So
well, I was trying not to sound like I was making a biased statement, but I've heard that over the years and meeting the St. Thomas public, they usually commend the St. Croix senators for being vocal, for standing up, for speaking out. I mean, our politics is a little different in St. Croix, but it's obvious that the people in St. Thomas want that more vocal, strong voice.
We seem to still be reeling from the hurricanes, and we have not recovered, and the recovery is ongoing. When you have a situation where everyone is traumatized, the election turns into a kind of referendum on whether we feel like we're going forward or not. And we look at our government and we ask ourselves, is this person in office, senator, governor, lieutenant governor, is this person moving us forward, or are they impeding our movement forward? Are we really going where we want to go? Schools that aren't even open in October, buildings and construction that's still a nightmare, and is this government responding to people or not? And I think it really ends up being a moment that's a referendum on our recovery. And I'm remembering back when Roy Schneider was governor and we had just come through Hurricane Marilyn, that his run for office really was taken as a kind of referendum on his work solving the problems that arose right after the hurricane. I wonder how much we're going to see that tonight.
Well, it's obvious during the campaign that a lot of the incumbents' campaign was on the recovery effort. There were many who are looking, well, besides recovery effort,
What else you
what
got?
are we
What
doing
else?
for as it relates to governing? So you're right, there are some people who are going to look at the recovery effort, and there's some people who are going to look at, well, what are we really working on as it relates to moving the Virgin Islands forward? One peeve I have in particular is the mobile schools and even the hospital units. Now, they cost a lot of money, and the effort that went into creating sewage, creating power, all this for these mobile units, had they sort of converged on these school sites, they could have gotten many of these school sites, not in totality, but gotten them for to be inhabited by students without taking away their playgrounds and taking up all the play space. So I'm wondering how smart of a strategy that was as it relates to spending.
Whether if we'd spent the money on the modular schools just repairing existing schools, whether we would have had at least some of the schools up and running right away.
Exactly, because the bottom line, the schools are still in disrepair.
So
Yes.
we have this situation where some people are dissatisfied with where we've gotten to. Some people think that what we've done is pretty good. And the choice as to who you're voting for, in part, depends on where you are on that.
Yes.
If you think
Yes.
they've done a good job,
Yes.
you want the incumbents back. If you think they're not doing a good job,
Then you want
then
to
get
change.
the incumbents out.
And I guess in a couple of hours we're
see which way we
all
go
gonna
here.
find out.
Hope, right?
Yes.
That people are looking at the accomplishments and the policies of the candidates and the incumbents and deciding based on that. There are some who think that in the Virgin Islands, politics it gravitates around personalities as opposed to actual policies.
I do agree with that. It's
Yeah, you can't
very
separate
much.
it.
Yeah,
You can't
can.
separate it, especially in these small communities like ours. Your personality, your personal life, all of that goes into the
Right.
public's discernment.
Consumption.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I wanted to get your ideas on this recent UVI VI Tech Stack poll. Now, this was organized by the UVI Institute for Leadership and Organizational Effectiveness. It's a division within the University of the Virgin Islands, and they partnered with a company called VI Tech Stack. Now, this is admittedly just one of the polls. This was conducted between October 27th and the 30th. So they got as close to Election Day as they could, and they asked voters some pretty pertinent questions. They had 800 respondents, and their margin of error is 3.46 on both sides. So one of the questions that they were asked was, thinking ahead, how likely are you to vote in the general election? And we're among the respondents, we're seeing an 86% of people who are saying that they are certainly going to vote at the time, during the time that the study was conducted. So that's a pretty large number of people.
It's excellent.
We do not get that type of turnout during elections, and I'm wondering what this turnout is going to be like ultimately when it's all said and done.
Or is it telling us that people say to pollsters, yes, I'm going to vote, even if they don't end up going to?
Well, there's that variance.
We
Well,
always have that.
isn't that why you have the margin of error for things like that?
But I think it's going to be a
It
lot more
wasn't
than
raining
3.64.
October 27th through
Yeah.
30 either, so the
Right,
skies
so-
were bright and sunny.
Yeah, you're right. And they were asked. They were asked at that time. Questions like, if the election for the governor of the Virgin Islands were held today, I think that was our next question. Would you support? And then they list the candidates: Kenneth Mapp, Fonzie Donistorg, Soraya Diasi-Kofelt, Jeanette Milling-Young, Albert Bryan, Mileto Smith, or Warren Mosler. And I believe, interestingly, 31% of the respondents said they would vote for Albert Bryan if the election were held that day. Next is Kenneth Mapp. Next is Fonzie Donistorg, and then we have Warren Mosler, Diasi-Kofelt, Soraya Diasi-Kofelt, Jeanette Milling-Young, and Mileto Smith. Now, some folks have accused, the pollsters who conducted this poll to be a bit biased against the Mapp administration. But that's what we have out of 800 voters.
With 18% undecided.
Yes.
Yes.
Right? Notice that with that amount of undecided
It
vote,
can-
4 different candidates could be the victor.
Absolutely.
Just if everybody went for
It's just split.
Right.
I do believe, however, that the poll got it right as far as who the top three are, and I'm not
Right.
necessarily saying in that order, but the
Yeah.
top three are definitely the incumbent, the Brian Roach team and the Donald Storr Hansen team. You can't sleep on the Mosley team. He's garnering some support, and I'm curious to see what's going to be the total outcome.
Me too.
He's certainly banking on his 45 years of experience in the financial markets, I believe.
Well, he's saying the right message. I mean, he's saying what I've been saying. You have to consolidate your
Yes.
debt. The thing is he electable here in the territory? Does the people trust him? I think on the bottom line, what I heard from very early, the electorate want somebody they can trust.
Absolutely.
Forget all your degrees and your experience on the wall. Can we trust you to do what's needed or what you think is the right thing? I think ultimately that's what it comes down to, and we're going to find out in a little bit.
I look at all the candidates and I look at their campaign materials, and I'm always looking to see, is it fluffy words, progress for people, we're going to all come together, or are there hard statements of policies that they're going to enact? And I just divide my candidates that way. Is it mostly fluff, or is it mostly positions? And you have to give Warren Mosler credit that he had a lot of stuff on the table that was, I'll do this, and very little of the here's a t-shirt kind of fluff.
Yes.
And this is
He's a world-renowned economist. You can't sleep on who, for me, and I've asked one administration to the next, why haven't you tapped into this guy? He's here in the territory.
Absolutely.
Countries sent for him to come spend a couple hours to tell them what to do.
Exactly.
And I believe, maybe that was part of his frustration why he eventually ran for office.
He did say that he was running as a matter of conscience.
Yes,
He
from the
feels-
beginning.
Right. He
Yes.
feels that he knows how to turn this economy around. That's why he's running.
I know the feeling.
Yeah. so let me
Yeah, let's stop there.
hold that thought, and we will get there later in the show.
We don't have to get there at all.
We'll ask that question in a little bit. Again, I'm sure a lot of people are wondering about you, Senator, and what the future holds for you in terms of the gubernatorial races and the senatorial races as well. Let me, before we head into a break, let me look at another item in this poll that was discussed, and that is regarding hurricane recovery. So the question is, do you approve or disapprove of how Governor Mapp is handling the recovery efforts of the territory in the aftermath of the hurricanes? 26% said they strongly approve, 23% somewhat approve, but as you can see, the approves, the strongly approve and the somewhat approve overpower the disapproves. Do you approve or disapprove?
It's
What?
almost 50% approve.
Right.
We're 2
It is.
points off of 50% approve. And not having opinions, 13%. So it's more approve than not approve.
But do you agree with that? Do you agree that he handled the hurricanes?
My
Pretty well.
personal opinion as to what I think could have been
Yeah,
done.
we're interested in your personal
My
opinion. That's
personal
why you're here.
opinion, I've been impressed with other approaches to taking care of aftermaths of storms. There are things that could have been done faster. I agree with the senator that the schools, we might have approached this differently, declaring the hospital a total disaster and then having FEMA come say it's only 7%, which delayed any action on the hospitals for a full year. There are other ways to do this.
And our medical evacuees, that's been a large area of disappointment for me personally. And so I would not be in the approve category.
For me, I thought that we concentrated a lot on saying, the henny penny, the sky is falling, and weren't really concentrating on what do we really need to do right now as quick as possible. Like, let's use the schools, for instance. Teachers wanted to go into the schools to see what they can salvage, open up the schools. Now, we still had to end up going into the schools to clean out those same schools that were supposedly condemned. Had that was allowed, it would have reduced some of the mold issues and all of these things, because just from the air flowing through. So I think that, and we were successful. The delegate, the senators, the governor, we went to Washington, we walked the hallways. But I think we were more crying, hey, the sky is falling, we want new schools, and in all practicality, that's not going to happen in that way.
But I
Senator
will say
Holt,
communication, I would put that in the approved category. I appreciated the level of communication, although I didn't always appreciate what was being communicated.
I was about to say, but
that's a whole That's a whole topic of conversation. I'm sorry. I need to take us to a little break. We'll be right back. You're watching Decision 2018, the live News 2 election night coverage. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Decision 2018, the live News 2 election night coverage. We have Senator Positive Terrence Nelson, Senator Positive T.A. Nelson.
Yes,
I keep forgetting. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Dr. Alexander Randall, as well as Siobhan Thomas, President-elect of the VI Bar Association. Now, before we went on break, we were talking about the University of the Virgin Islands poll in partnership with VI Tech Stack. Dr. Randall raised a few points that warrants a conversation. But let me just go to the last two items that we decided to highlight on this poll, and one of them is regarding the economy. And these questions are mostly, do you approve or disapprove of Governor Mapp's performance in certain areas of his leadership? And because this election is essentially a judgment of his administration, are people going to give him another chance or not? So this question is, do you approve or disapprove of how Governor Mapp is handling the economy? 29% said they approve. A whopping 49% said they disapprove. 23% have no
In
opinion
favor,
on the matter.
43 opposed.
49 disapprove.
Disapprove, 49.
Right,
Nearly
right.
half.
Nearly half, yeah, and only 29%.
I'm reminded of a political cartoon that ran during the Obama administration of the president sitting at the Resolute desk with this big lever in front of him that said economy, and he could just pull it one way or the other. We talk about our political leaders as if they have a handle on the economy and could just make it go, or make it stop, or make more jobs. And it isn't like that at all. Senator, you've been there. You can't just push something and go, that'll make 1,000 new jobs.
You're exactly correct. However, you could create 1,000 new jobs if you did some redistribution in government, but we're not going to talk about that because, that I don't want to sound political, but regarding the question, are we pleased with the economy? Mm-hmm. I agree. The economy is impacted by so many things that we don't have control over. Mm-hmm. Could we have done things a little different and prioritize our spending a little different to have better results and be able to sort of insulate ourselves a little better? Yes, we could have. Because you shouldn't take a $220 million windfall and just spend it on old debt. Some of that should go into revenue generation or regeneration. And I thought when all that money was spent prior to even receiving it, those things that showed a lack of prioritization, a lack of vision, and so I would agree with the 40.
I do agree.
49%.
Yeah. And economically, we're just not nimble.
Yeah.
We're not.
I mean, and even look now. Okay, look.
Yeah.
So we're anticipating increased revenue from Lime Tree, even though I didn't support it, and right away we issued out increases, pay increases. You should watch and see how close you are to projections first of all, before you start promising all these things. So to me, all those seem like political ploy, and it doesn't feel well for somebody watching it from an economic standpoint. That's projected, anticipated revenue that might be somewhat uncertain. There's a lot of variables still in play.
Well, we certainly know that lots of elections, just before the election, there's been a pay increase, and just after the election, it gets taken away again.
And layoffs.
And really the question to the people is, are you willing to believe that your pay increase or your bonus or your 3% increase or you're being brought up to step, that the things that were done just before the election really are a reason to vote for these senators,
so
this
come back
governor?
to the trust issue, you see?
Do we trust you? Do we trust you to come through with this?
Is this real? Are you being honest? Is it just to get in office and then right when it's done, here comes the real deal?
The 8% pay cut. That didn't happen before an election. It happened right after one.
Exactly.
What do you think, Siobhan?
And the Third Circuit Court of Appeals has already kind of slapped us down and said, don't ever do this again. And so for us, we could really put ourselves in a very tough spot legally if we take back any of these raises, because we've been warned.
As a matter of fact, it would have been better if we are anticipating new revenue, pay that 8% that you owe the people.
Pay the old 8%.
Pay some of the old retro that, because, and the benefit of that is in pay increases is spread out over a long time. When you pay those lump sums, that money is we're gonna see that back in our treasury, in the government's treasury, a lot sooner, because when they get that bulk money, people are gonna spend it.
They're going to spend it.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
look at how old retro is. We're
Exactly.
talking about retro wages that go back donkey years.
So
Oh,
there's
yeah.
the moral factor as well when you pay that. So that helps to lift the whole esteem of the entire
It does.
territory. So,
Now, before we head to, I believe we have a live report coming in a few moments, but I
some
wanted
numbers?
to. No, I highly doubt it at this point,
You like
because the polls closed at 7.
okay,
so those
okay.
jump drives might just be still traveling to the election offices.
Watch
to
them close,
10,000 early voters. 10,000. 11,000. Exactly. Bring it
early
in.
voter turnout. I wanted to ask the last question in the poll that we were talking about, and go to Dr. Randall's observations about how the poll was conducted. And that question was, do you approve or disapprove of the way the 32nd legislature is handling its job? That's you. Okay.
I could tell you no.
Well, let's see what the people think. Well, they agree with you. 67% they disapprove, and only 11% approve. The no opinions overwhelm the approves. How about that? Senator, you said you agree with that observation?
Yeah, I mean, I was this 7 terms, and this 32nd legislature was totally off base. They seem to be boiling confusion. Doesn't seem to, we didn't have one good sit down as an entire body off record about what it is we really want to do for the Virgin Islands. They were caught up more in power mongering than anything else. It was disgusting to me. I can understand why a lot of individuals opted to seek higher office, or it just that did not feel good. And the head, if it's headless, you can't expect the body to go well.
And do you think the fact that a lot of newcomers are getting the top spots, or got the top spots in the primaries, is a testament to that?
I like to tell you what it is really. When you're forming your majority caucus, and you're forming beyond the majority caucus, when you're selecting your committee chairs, and you put inexperienced people who don't quite understand how to chair the committee and how to dig down in. So you have committees that won't really doing the work. In other words, the chairs weren't really familiar with what to do. And as a new senator, I can tell you, it's powerful to get a finance committee. It's powerful to get a rules committee. But when you get these committees, if you don't know how to handle it, it really hurts the entire institution. And I think that is what we're falling victim to.
It's true. But you know what I've learned from this 32nd legislature? The Workforce Development Committee has so much power. Senator Sirot did an excellent job with that committee as a newcomer.
I'm sorry. You can probably see that I was trying to get your attention.
I'd already started.
We need to come up with some smoke signals here. Okay, that's because we have a live report coming in, and I believe it is from the St. Croix election system offices. Let's see that video.
Hi, this is Stephanie Shalana Brown, and I am at the election systems of the Virgin Islands on St. Croix. And we're here at the site. It's a rainy evening, and people are already starting to show up so they can get some more information about results. It has been a rainy day, and individuals who were campaigning for the gubernatorial and the senatorial candidates, they were out there enduring the rain. However, they still kept their endurance up, as I was viewing as I went through many polls throughout St. Croix today in the different districts, and they were just really excited. And we're here at the election system once again at St. Croix. We're awaiting more information. As we know, polling places have been closed down. Now, according to the information that we do have from the election system of the Virgin Islands, nearly 12,000 persons turned up for early voting. Now, as of 5 o'clock, the information that was provided is that 5,000 voters, the registered voters, voted today throughout the territory. That's St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John. We are waiting more information. We're here at the election system of the Virgin Islands, St. Croix district, and I will make sure to keep you guys posted throughout the evening.
Shalana.
I thought she was going to tell us how many, what's the numbers thus far.
Well, the last information that I got, and this was from when I could talk to people at the election system earlier, was at 3 o'clock they had about roughly 8,500 who voted territory-wide. That's St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix. And to me, that's a little bit low considering it's at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You had 4 hours left of opportunity for voters to come in, and that's like nowhere near the 11,829 voter turnout for early voting.
I'll say this though, a lot of folks after work they go to vote, so you get a surge from maybe between 5:30 to maybe between 5:30 and 6:30, 7 o'clock time. Yeah.
But isn't it exciting how many people voted early?
Yeah.
I mean, that really is the
Very.
story, is that early voting makes it easy, people go and do it, we get results early, and you don't stand in line. You're not going through the rain on election day and
Well, I went
dealing with
I went to the I had to hold mine till last minute.
Were you undecided? Is that why you held yours to the last minute?
Well, you know, again, this was a new thing for me. I must admit, for the last few gubernatorial elections since coming home, I voted for myself.
Yeah.
Okay, but so this
Yeah.
is the first time that I'm actually, and the last time I voted for the incumbent. This time it took a lot of contemplation because again I have the trust issue. There's some people I like, and they, you know, I just want to make sure that we're headed on the right track. So I'm not going to disclose who I voted for, of course. That's very private.
Are you sure?
At this point.
We're
Well,
not
not
gonna
yourself.
guys
I know
here.
this much, but I did not vote for the incumbent. I think that might have been obvious.
But just a second, you didn't vote early. I didn't vote early. I went in today at 11 o'clock. Did
Oh,
you vote
wow.
early?
I voted early. I loved
There
it.
you
It was
go.
fantastic.
I will not disclose whether or not I voted.
Okay, all right, all right. But the fact is,
New levels
that
of secrecy.
You just having that option opens the door for a lot of people who otherwise wouldn't have participated, and
Yes.
we see it in the numbers. That's what counts.
Yes.
Absolutely. So actually, remember, Dr. Randall, we had a Decision 2018 countdown show leading up to this particular live coverage, and Dr. Randall was on the show a couple of times as well. Senator Nelson was also on the show. You weren't on the show because I didn't know you yet at the time. So, but we're really happy to have you guys all together. Dr. Randall and I were talking about how early voting numbers kind of put us on track to crushing the record for the 2014 gubernatorial election, which was a 54% turnout. But the numbers at 3 o'clock today kind of disappointed us a little bit. And we had to
Yes.
have at least double the early voting numbers in order for us to even get close to the 2014 turnout.
Well,
Agreed.
won't that be interesting to see whether or not we beat 2014's turnout or not?
Right.
That really is.
What happened after 3 o'clock?
Are we
Very.
apathetic? Don't we care?
I mean, the weather. I mean, on Cinco in
That
particular,
weather.
Cinco, the weather was.
It was
rough.
terrible.
Yeah, it wasn't the best. I mean, even right now, it's raining pretty bad.
So it's possible people waited until
between
like
the
6
weather-
o'clock to head to the polls.
And some folks might have, let me tell you, coming on to the end, it started to get a little nasty. I'm real happy that
Yes.
November 6th got here because I don't know what other corner we were going to turn. And I think a lot of people were already despondent anyway. Folks were like, I'm not going to vote. And, and they had somebody, we want to vote for you. Oh, well, I'm not going to vote then. And you said, listen, you have to go vote anyway. So there's
Yes.
people who were feeling that idea. So to get out the vote, that was a constant, it is a constant struggle.
Yeah, are you saying that people were apathetic, that it doesn't matter?
Yeah. So,
I found a lot of that.
But you always think that in a gubernatorial competition that everybody cares because it's the governor. But I'm hearing you say you.
Well,
ran
when
with
you
a lot
hear
of
people starting to say, well, it doesn't matter who gets in office, it's going to be the same thing, and nobody's really fixing it, and nobody cares about you. Like you heard the young fellow who spoke, that nobody's looking out for we the people.
Yes.
And that's what I over the years, and I'm getting that hey, you guys get inside there, and the rich folks, and the people don't matter to you. I know some of it is what they're getting from radio talk show hosts. I get that, but some of it is what we're making them feel. I mean, when you think about sin taxes, and every time the government wants more money, that it finds a way to tax the people, and at the same time, the government is giving away 100% tax breaks to very large, multi-billion-dollar corporations. It does not send a good message to the people. Who you really represent is the question. And we're not saying don't get breaks, but I understand that's how we grow. But you should balance it so you're not trying to squeeze it all out of the people. And to me, I've observed that over the years, and that is the argument I've been making. And when people say, why he votes against these things, well,
So you're saying when every time you have a Coca-Cola and you feel that 15% sin tax going through your fingertips,
exactly.
you're thinking about Lime Tree Bay and
I'm thinking
Diageo
about
and these big companies that are getting the breaks.
Sure.
Exactly. Even the minimum property tax, and then you still turn around and give the big corporation a full 100%. Okay, let's say you want to attract them still. Fine. Don't give them 100%. Give them 90. Give them 80. Give them, let them pay something into the coffers, because it's not fair to the people. We had a lot of calls, me personally in my office, from a lot of elders, seniors who used to be zeroed out based on the different exemptions, but because there was a minimum of 360 plus the sewer tax of 125, you have a minimum seniors paying now of 485. That might seem small to somebody making big money, but to somebody who's on a fixed income who hasn't gone up since God knows when.
So you
they
don't
worry
agree
about
with
that.
the EDC benefits?
I'm not saying I don't agree. I'm just saying we have to balance the EDC benefits with the revenue needs of the territory, and you can't want to get it from small businesses and working mom and pops, and
Absolutely.
that's where. So I understand the program, and the program is attractive. We have it,
It's
and
great.
we should utilize
Yeah.
it. But there should be a better balance, especially when the people are right now struggling because the government's with its need for new infrastructure, like right now our new WAPA bills. What are they? 2 months, 3 months, or whatever? We're paying for propane infrastructure.
Yeah, where's that propane discount?
but you know-
Remember, we're
Also,
going
is
to
it
get
just me,
30%.
or did
Where's,
the
I'm
last
sorry, are you
bottom of the
enjoying your
ocean.
30%?
Man,
Wait a
not
minute, hold
seeing
it.
it.
No, having two fuels, fuel, oil and propane, that was going to save
And we
us
owe
money.
them over $60 million.
And all the
Speaking
solar
of
panels.
propane,
I mean, it's out of
hang on.
control.
On St. Croix, propane is up. On St. Thomas, it's not.
But when you
also,
look, it's one system still, it's one energy system, so don't let that fool you. Okay, it may not be up, it might be up in St. Croix, we say, yeah, but if it's down in St. Thomas and there's one fuel source, all the cost is calculated into everybody, that's distributed to everybody, it's still hitting everybody.
also, people
We
are
need that
asking where the
30%
savings are.
discount.
People are asking where the savings are coming from propane, and they're feeling like they're not feeling
Remember, it
it.
was supposed to be
However,
$67 million and it went up to 180.
according to WAPA, some of those savings are already reflected in your current bill. Now, if some things don't get done, such as I believe the raising of the debt ceiling for WAPA from 500 million to 750 million, one of the reasons that they were saying if the debt ceiling doesn't get raised, according to WAPA executives, that those savings might disappear at the end of the year
But
because
that
they
sounds
need
contrary.
that buffer.
Let me fix that for you. If you just raise your debt ceiling to allow you to borrow more money, if you borrow more money, who's going to pay for that increased borrowing?
And the
same
interest.
rate payers. So don't let them fool you with that. That's my issue.
And just because I'm playing devil's
not a
advocate here,
solution.
I will say that WAPA did emphasize that just because they raised the debt ceiling doesn't mean that they will borrow more money, because they do have existing contractual obligations and they can't borrow over what they don't have. It just legally allows them to do it. Did you vote for that, raising the debt ceiling?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I see,
No,
and I'm
not at
still,
all.
I'm still
Yeah,
waiting for
no.
my propane benefit. I'm
Yeah.
still waiting.
Wait,
We watch
I did not vote for that either.
millions and millions of dollars spent on
Yes.
tanks and moving the tanks and building the construction, getting set and converting the generators, and I'm still waiting to hear them go,
Because
here's your
here's
30%.
There's no
break."
results. When are we going to see results from WAPA?
And that's my issue. We keep putting band-aids. Okay, let's talk about energy just for one quick second. And energy infrastructure. We all know we need new power generation. We need a overhaul of our distribution system. I know in St. Croix that it needs to move from Richmond to on the South Shore. Okay, the St. Croix Renaissance location is a perfect location for it. There's where you put new generation. There's where we should have put the propane plant. There's where you should have started the distribution lines to start that over. In St. Thomas, we're renting generation to the tune of some $1.something million. It makes no sense when you rent, because at the end of the day, you still have to purchase.
never yours.
It's never yours, and you're paying big money. So for me, it's okay if we're going to make the borrowing and we're going to invest in infrastructure, energy infrastructure, fine, do it. But
Get
what
the
we did with
infrastructure.
propane, we purchased a propane plant, and a 2015 propane plant to speak to a 1954
Generator.
It doesn't
Trying to
work.
make them talk to each other.
So you pretty much had to build why the cost went up, and this is me without any engineering background. They pretty much had to build a whole separate unit to allow one to communicate with the next.
Yep.
And that is where the cost comes in.
Well, we're looking at the comments from our live viewers here on Facebook, and somebody said solar power.
Yeah, where? Most of you just said a moment ago we should have redone the distribution system. Maria and Irma helped us along. We had a moment there when we could have said, wait, before we start putting all the poles up in the same places, let's re-examine where this stuff is going to be
And
in
do
the
it
long
properly
term.
so they
and
don't
do it for a
all
long
get
term.
all blown
I'm seeing
away.
the composite poles. I don't know if you've seen the composite poles.
Absolutely.
They're awesome. And they're going to be there for the long haul. But I am also looking at this wondering, what happened to all of our solar panels? Right, they got blown away. The people who are on net metering are paying WAPA nothing. Because the solar panels generate, we're in infinite sunshine. We have more sunshine than anybody in continental US. We have sunshine like all of our neighboring islands. We should be leading in solar generation. Where is it, WAPA?
But that's with everything, you know, we don't truly view what we actually have and use it to the best of our ability. It's like everybody can see what we have here except us, and it's such a problem.
Let me interrupt you guys for a second. We have, I believe we have Senator DeGraff, who's talking to James Gardner, who is our reporter on the field. Let's look at this video.
We need to hurry up, man. Okay, we're here live with Senator Dwayne DeGraff. Senator DeGraff, how you doing tonight?
Feeling good tonight, man. You know, happy to be a part of the voting process, and thank you to all the people that came out to vote for their candidates.
You went around to the polls today. What did you see out there?
I saw a lot of enthusiastic people. You know, I got good feedback in regards to myself and to all the candidates. So, you know, it was very good to see all the candidates have the people who are out, even though we are a distance away. People are still enjoying themselves and having fun.
We're still waiting on the numbers a little bit, but
Yes.
how you feel about your chances right now getting back in?
I put in the hands of the Lord and to bless the people who may have supported me. And I will hold our comments in regards to that point until this time. But I feel good. Health-wise, I had a good campaign. I had a good 2-year run. So hopefully the people will see all that I did and put me in again.
All right, Senator, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Senator DeGraff talking about
He's a good guy. I hope he makes it.
Oh, there you go.
Me too.
Talking about enthusiastic voters, which is basically what I saw headed to the polls when I went to the polls early this morning. A lot of people just really, really excited. You could feel the energy. I'm just heading into the different polling places. We're going to take a little break for a second, and then we'll circle back to what we were just talking about. You're watching Decision 2018, the live News 2 election night coverage. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Decision 2018, our live News 2 election night coverage. We're here with Senator Positive T.A. Nelson, Siobhan Thomas, and Dr. Alexander Randall. We were talking earlier, I believe, Dr. Randall, about your observations regarding the poll that was conducted by UVI in partnership with the iTech and you had some issues or concerns
Just questions.
Just questions.
Just
Okay.
questions.
What are the questions?
Well, I have the highest regard for the university, perhaps because I teach there. But I also have the highest regard for the university's integrity, that they are an organization to which you can attribute high quality work. The poll, however, seems to have been conducted by John Yob. Who's in charge of the poll. Now, John Yob might be a name that's unfamiliar to a lot of people, but we only have to go back 2 years ago that John Yob was in the Virgin Islands, transplanted from Michigan, attempting to take over the Republican Party so he could get himself elected to go as the delegate to the convention that eventually nominated.
Did create quite a stir around here for a few years.
Right.
It was quite the start. It's like, who's this guy from the outside, and how did the Republican Party, which used to be like 12 people, suddenly turn into 300 people, and they're all people that knew John Yob. So he has an axe to grind. He has a position. He's not a neutral player. He's not a news organization that has a neutral stance. He's a political operative, and he has political issues and needs and desires. And I just wonder whether the poll really is completely fair, or whether there's some built-in biases that we just don't happen to know about.
Now, two things. For background, John Yob was a political operative from Michigan who came down here, I believe, like not even a year before the 2016 election.
That was part of the issue. Was he legitimately a resident?
He registered as a voter because that was required in order for him to be elected in a position within the Republican Party of the Virgin Islands. Ostensibly, that move of moving down here, and he wasn't the only one. There's another political operative from Michigan, Dennis Lennox.
Whole posse of his friends came with him.
Yes.
Well, I'm not sure about a whole posse of friends. I know for a fact John Yob came down from Michigan, Dennis Lennox came down from Michigan. I'm not sure, I can't
There
say
was someone else.
what
There was a trio.
what their agendas were, but ostensibly it was because the Republican Party, who were part of the Republican Party, they were pro-Trump, were trying to make sure that they had enough votes in the convention to push Trump over the top. Also, the other thing that I wanted to mention was that Dr. Randall, you were mentioning something about bias, and the question is, does his bias translate to bias in the conduct of the poll?
And who was asked?
Are the what we don't know, are the questions neutral? And there's a lot of science that goes into how you construct questions to make them neutral. But we also don't know which 800 people were called. Is this a completely random sample? Did he call 300 of his Republican friends and 500 other people? Did he call 800 people he found in the phone book? We simply don't know.
The breakdown territorially, I mean, there are a couple of questions.
I mean, I can say this, we're not using any scientific method at all, but just feeling the pulse of the people, the pulse of the electorate. St. Thomas is done with the incumbent. St. Thomas sound like they were done a couple of years ago.
He still has a stronghold on St. Croix.
Well, I won't call it a stronghold, and that's the thing. Is he still have a foothold on St. Croix?
Okay.
Is that a large enough foothold? Well, you know, obviously, and it's been predicted that we're going to end up in a runoff. Now, what will be surprises that people might have had, like, because you know with Snyder, Snyder didn't anticipate that he was going to take the whooping he was going to take, because people were pretty much afraid. So people pretty much kept their tongue still, and election day, whop, threw the lick. So we're going to see if that was in existence. But St. Thomas, I don't expect that he's going to do too well at St. Thomas. And I don't think he's going to be strong enough in St. Croix.
Let's head right into that discussion then. I want to know what your projections are for the gubernatorial race. You said that Governor Mapp might not be doing too well.
Yeah, well, I really don't think he's going to get a second term.
Okay.
If he survives this, election and ends up in a runoff, then he's going to lose landslide.
But do you believe there's going to be a runoff or not?
And he may not be in the runoff.
You're not so sure about the runoff.
It might have a runoff, but it may not be the incumbent in the runoff. It's possible too.
It's entirely possible.
possible.
On the street, I do a lot of asking people, what do you think is going to happen? It's what I do. Everybody I bump into, they know what I do here, so I ask them, what do you think about this election? Pretty much everyone I spoke to, and of course this is only St. Thomas and only the people I bump into, but pretty much everybody said it's going to be a runoff election between Mapp and Bryan. But I'm looking at the numbers here going, this could be a runoff election between Bryan and Donna Stark. It's entirely possible. And what we don't know is how many people buttoned their lips or said, yes, we support the incumbent, when they got to the booth and they're by themselves in there with the pen and the pencil and it's just me, they have a different opinion. But I do think we're headed into a runoff tonight.
We're definitely headed into a runoff tonight. If we don't have a runoff, you'll see my surprise face. I think it's going to be a runoff between Bryan and Mapp.
So I'm not going to get to see your surprise face tonight.
No.
You don't think so?
I'm going to wait until the numbers start coming in.
And what really counts here, and our system is in a sense biased in favor of incumbents. We have all of these people running against the incumbent. If there's dissatisfaction with the incumbent, it gets spread over 6 other candidates.
Absolutely.
So it's very hard. If we had imagine if we had a primary to winnow the independents down to just one, and we had an independent against Democrat, or we had a 2-on race the way they do in the continent, Republicans and Democrats, and we just had a 2-person contest, we might see a different kind of outcome.
Absolutely.
But I think what we're going to see here is how much of the dissatisfaction, how much of these percentages for Mosler, Kofelt, Young, Smith, undecided, how many of those folks are not going to vote for the incumbent in a runoff election?
Well, that's what
That's
I'm
the
saying.
question.
That's why I believe.
Really is it?
And the scheduling of the potential runoff. I mean, November 20 is late. A lot of people fly off island to go
that's
visit
like
their
2 days
family.
before Thanksgiving,
Yeah,
and
it's
all
a
that.
couple of days before Thanksgiving, and so that also will change the demographics of this vote.
You don't think there's going to be as many voters participating in the runoff?
I do not. I don't. I don't think
Yeah, I
so.
know.
It's the hardcore who come out for that.
Well, it's definitely gonna. If it's a runoff, it's gonna be I think the turnout is gonna be big. I think they're gonna charge up for the runoff if there is.
Senator, let me go to a question by one of our live viewers on Facebook. And this person, J.C. Eric, said, seeing that the tourism took a large hit post-hurricane, what other industries can the VI capitalize on? I wanted to ask you, what do you think?
I mean, that's a right walk into. That's a walk right into one of the.
That's why I asked
Just opened his door
That's
for
not
him.
I mean, let's face it. I mean, any economist, any policy maker would be having to pay attention to what's going on with the number one booming industry right now. We're talking about cannabis, whether medicinal cannabis, adult use cannabis, and here in a tourist industry, in a tourist destination, I think that would just add to the amenities that we have here for tourists to come to. So I feel if we really need to pursue the cannabis industry medicinally and recreationally, we can have zones. People get all buzzed out about this, but there's zones like what the benefit we have being in a Caribbean island, cruise ships, etc. If there are some lounges and zones, where the red light zones we want to call them, where they can come to, procure their cannabis and relax in an adult environment, and then go home. So what? I mean, we're trying to govern people's behavior. I mean, we got relaxed with the whole gay movement coming out. So what happened if somebody after work, after a hard day, want to, along with a glass of wine?
Well, I think also we have a
We have
very
bars.
large, we have bars, and we
We
have a
have
large
cigar
amount
lounges
of
and-
cancer patients in this territory per capita, and I mean it's been proven that that is a pain reliever.
At the very least.
Well, to be frankly honest, as you know, I've been talking about this for the past 8, maybe 9 years. So I'm pretty much familiar. A lot of people are coming up to me telling me when they've been places and they're using certain things now. And even here, I'm very proud that a lot of locals have started generating some medicinal cannabis products here in the territory.
Now, for
I gotta
background,
interject just a second. He's been on this for 8 years. And if we had done what Positive said 8 years ago,
We would have been
have
ahead.
led the nation.
We
We
would be
would have been
Colorado,
the
right?
people that demonstrate. We would have been the Colorado. We would have been accruing tax revenues. We would have gotten product that we grew here, that we shipped to the States.
New
the
schools.
opportunity
Money for
is just
infrastructure, yes.
overwhelming.
Yes.
But instead, it's just like casino gaming. We talked about it and talked about it and talked about it. When we finally got around to doing it, we're the last one in. Everybody already had casinos in the world. We could have been first. Instead, we're going to be last. We're
Hopefully
going
not
to
dead
miss
last.
out.
Hopefully not dead last. I'm still hoping there's a hearing on November 27th in the Economic Development Committee. I'm hoping that Macaulay City Wisdom at least pass the medicinal bill.
Now,
Please
for
go
background-
testify.
for background,
As a former senator, please go testify.
Well,
Your position's
on.
well taken. This
Okay.
is, you asked us where the
yeah,
economy
I
is.
am, but I'm
This
trying
is
to
one
give
of them.
people background on the medical marijuana movement in the Virgin Islands, which recently was put on the 2014 general election ballot in a referendum,
Yes.
and people voted in favor
56.7% in favor
That's
of
right,
medicinal
medical
cannabis
marijuana.
legislation.
The question is, are they ready for recreational marijuana as an industry booster?
Let's be honest. Cannabis, commonly known as marijuana, is used recreationally in the territory. You go to concerts and police are there, people smoking weed right there, everybody there. As a matter of fact, one time in St. John, when Bunny Whaler was there, an officer leaned over and said, Senator Nelson, you hear what Bunny Whaler say? Why don't you all just legalize it and save us the problem? I mean, we need to get over this taboo and stop, sticking our heads down in the sand. I get it. I'm a father. We don't want young children indulging in sex, drinking alcohol, or using cannabis recreationally. But can we have a regulated legal system here that makes sense? Yes, so that you don't have to, if you decide that you want weed to smoke or whatever, that you got to go around some dark corner, possibly get robbed. So you're creating crime. The same thing when alcohol was illegal, you created crime because of the status. When you change the status, the crime reduced. So to me, there's no argument relative to the medicinal benefits, but when you have colleagues saying, I can't be convinced that they have any medicinal benefits, then that's not anybody you need to be talking with, because you cannot convince ignorance. When science, no, ignorance is you refuse to acknowledge data. You refuse to acknowledge what scientific reports are putting out. I'm not calling anybody names. I'm just saying when you're going to just refuse all of the data in front of you, that's not put there by Positive Nelson, but by research scientists, well respected.
And it also goes back to our resources. You know, the same conversation we had earlier. We have beautiful volcanic soil.
Yes,
Everyone who knows me knows I can't grow a plant to save my life, but I can here, right? And we have sun. I mean, why don't we use those resources?
And I'll say this, that anybody who have come from another place, you know, that people are coming from Colorado, and I've had people visit, and they've stated over and over that this sun-grown subtropic region creates a lot more dense oil. The terpene oils on the leaves, that's where the medicine is. So thus the medicine that can be created from the oils in the Caribbean, sun-grown, it's a lot richer.
And let's add to this that CBD, which is one of the products that comes out of cannabis that doesn't get you high, has all kinds of medicinal properties.
Yes.
Let us also note Canada now has wide open
scale.
cannabis. In fact, all the way from the coast of Alaska all the way down to the end of Mexico, the entire Pacific coast now has recreational marijuana. It isn't just Colorado. It's not just a bunch of hippies in Boulder. It's the whole West Coast.
Yes.
And we are going to end up being the last ones on the boat here. If we got the tax revenues from tourist cannabis alone, we'd pay off our GERS debt.
Yes, I was trying to work on something with the banking division to see if we could pass legislation to allow us to accept the cannabis monies, because, you know, a lot of the banks are afraid to take that risk because of FDIC insurance.
Yes.
But this opens
they
up
deal
another
in cash.
venue.
Yeah.
You ask what are the other economic opportunities. We've opened up cannabis here as a topic. There are so many we don't take advantage of. We have the best internet infrastructure on the planet. We could be marketing the Virgin Islands. We could have an office in Silicon Valley just to promote the Virgin Islands as a place to put businesses in the EDC category.
Yes.
Imagine if we had a piece of legislation that said there would never be a sales tax on any business transacted through the internet if it's done on St. Croix. And have the server farms on St. Croix. It's a whole domain of business we haven't even touched.
It's a game changer.
It's
Absolutely.
I don't know if no sales tax, we could put a 1 cent sales tax, you know, think about
Absolutely.
it. 1 cent per transaction, you know.
But we treat it as though the only things we have are tourism. We treat it as though cruise ships is it, and overnight hotels, that's it, and then we put our hands in the sand and don't look at all the
Here's the challenge with tourism. When there's disturbances, war, or inclement weather, or what have you, you know,
You're done.
Economic
slow down.
instability.
Exactly.
Yes.
So you don't want to rely on that as your economy.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
Put more to change the
Remember,
basket.
we used to have watches.
Yes.
Well,
what beat that down was
Absolutely.
the benefits, the labor laws changed that some, so they went across there. As crazy as Trump is, President Trump is with his policies, is somewhat encouraging American companies to come back home as well, because so that's a good thing, you know. Trump is not all bad, I'll give it, fair enough. He's not all bad. He talks a lot of smack, it's hard to tolerate him. But some of the things he's doing, I think, is good because he is breaking the mold in some way, and Washington needed that shakeup. So I believe in that sense, I kind of appreciate that aspect of the
Just as we
Is he
do.
a Trumpian?
No. No, I'm not.
I was leaning in
I'm just being
closely, you know? I was
objective.
waiting
No,
for him
no,
to
no.
say
You
it.
like some of the policies,
I'm just being
though,
objective
because
about
they're bringing business home.
Yeah, because when we really look at this,
You might even see that pharmaceutical thing that made the economy in Puerto Rico. If we had something that looked even a little bit like
Just a
that
little bit.
in the Virgin
Yes.
Islands, that someone in Washington goes, look, here's a bone.
Yeah.
This is something you all can do really well.
Remember they were here. We had some pharmaceuticals here and they left. They went to
But I think we look at everything as these large projects versus saying, let's get a little bit of this, let's get a little bit of that. You know,
Right.
that's all that we have to do. We don't have to get the entire market share. Let's get 3% for the Virgin Islands.
Well, if
You know, it's
anything-
interesting. A lot of the gubernatorial candidates did have ideas on what could be the next industry that could pull the Virgin Islands out
Listen,
of this
if
hole.
you ain't talking cannabis is low-hanging fruit. You know, I
It
really
is.
thought that was a simple boom. Legalize it, regulate it. The government didn't have to do too much on that. That was private sector growth.
What do you think of drag racing? One of our viewers said, when will they consider drag racing for an economic boost?
Well, here's what drag racing, besides the economy, okay, it takes a lot of young people, young men in particular, off the streets because one car will occupy at least about 5-8 guys, you know, they to work on the car, to paint the car. So these things we have to look at sometimes, not just from an economic base, but from a societal, you know, reduce the crime type of effect. And at the same time build interest. So yes, we should have drag racing, we should have horse racing, yes, we can have dog racing. I mean, you know, we just need to open up.
Again, it's great to get a Disney World, but you know, we'll take a 1% here, we'll take 3% there. Let's
Exactly.
build this
And as
economy.
you said, this percentage, just think about 3% of what is it, $85.5 billion industry by 2020. I'm talking about
That's fine.
legal cannabis.
That's a floor for a hospital, a couple of new schools, we'll take it.
The GERS that paid.
No, I tell you my
And that
concern,
too.
because I've heard some individuals talk about legalizing cannabis to use the monies to pay GRS. The concern I have with that is I want to see monies from cannabis go direct into our infrastructure, direct into build. So even though you'll take some to GRS money we don't see right away. Okay, that's money is going for others to invest. I think we need to make sure that we can see the money from any legalization on the ground in particular.
So did any of the candidates come out in favor of cannabis?
Well,
did anybody?
the Roach Bryan team, and Senator Roach was the only senator that went with me on when we took the delegation to Colorado and Washington. And he didn't go because he was supportive. He said he went because the people voted in favor of it, and it's worth looking at. And by the time we came back, he was on board. Because it's hard not to be on board once you see how these things operate.
Yes.
Governor Mapp did say he was going to consider the legislation. He didn't say
But
if he was.
in all honesty, I met with the governor. The governor met with me, called me to a meeting. And that's when he tried on Facebook. He had the Rasta hat and the fake locks when the meeting. And he spoke about that, and he said he was going to put a team together, a 5-member committee to work with me. I found out that they actually contracted some individual to start writing a bill separate from mine, and just went on his own tangent. So I think that's game playing. I think anybody that all of the candidates was somewhat hesitant and cautious about talking about cannabis because they figure they don't know which way it will split. You know, that's where I differ from a lot. I think leadership takes courage, and sometimes you have to be bold enough and strong enough to explain to the people why you're supporting this particular initiative.
Agreed.
But I think
I need to break into this. I'm sorry, Senator. I need to break into
fine.
this conversation again. I think we have a live report coming in from
Numbers?
Numbers?
Well, I'm still.
We sound like
we're all waiting.
I mean, you just give us a little hint of what's going on.
We're all kind of waiting. No, I think however, they're experiencing some delays with the.
So we can go back to talking about
Go back to talking about cannabis. No, but you know, I do think that this issue of whether or not we go full steam ahead with medical marijuana and recreational marijuana is a decision that we need to make as a community. And I think people made their choice known with the medical marijuana legislation.
Well, that's why the idea was to roll out medicinal first and give us an experience with that. All of the places we went said if they could do it over, they would roll them out simultaneously, because what happened with medicinal, you had people, you don't want to create quack doctors, okay, creating fake notes for people to get the prescription and all these things. You actually, and if somebody on St. Croix actually explained that to me, he said, positive, you're now going to create a challenge to the integrity of the medical profession, because, you know, who's not going to get into sign a paper and you get a $25, $30, $50 or whatever to give a prescription. So instead of doing that, you just roll out and you have less tax on the medicinal program, more tax on the recreational program. So it's not a problem to roll it out, even if, you know, I think, you know, we always beat down ourselves as we're incapable of regulating anything, right? And I've heard that in the Senate. Well, you know, I think I get it. I understand, and there have been challenges, but since we're no longer pioneer on this move, we have so many models to follow.
Exactly.
You know,
You follow a Canadian model.
exactly. I
You
mean,
follow a Nebraska
well,
model.
I like what's that country that is that a South American country that
Uruguay.
They have it like ABC stores where the government distributed. You see what I'm saying? So the government purchased from the growers and they distributed in that ABC like store. So we just need to stop playing with it and do what we're going to do. And so that if we want full control, instead of standing hands off, do like in Kentucky. Kentucky, the federal government had issues with their hemp seeds, okay, industrial hemp. And the DEA first held their first shipment of hemp seeds. And afterwards, when they realized that this is not going backwards, the DEA actually worked with the Kentucky government to create a program that they can deal with, that they're okay with. So now the Kentucky hemp program is one of the
Let me
models.
ask you the hard question.
Here we go.
Of the people who are going to be elected tonight, do we see a majority who would support the piece of legislation you originally put on the table? Is there any crew that you can see?
And before you answer that question, here's my segue. I believe we have the live report ready now.
Good. Phew, save me there.
And then you have a little time to think about it. I think this is coming in from the St. Thomas election office. We have James Gardner stationed over there.
All right, Senator.
And, I think he's
here with
interviewing
Senator Marvin Blyden. How are you doing tonight,
Marvin Blyden,
Senator?
the incumbent,
I'm tired, but I'm
who was
blessed.
number
I'm good.
2.
So you've been
in
out
the
on the trail today?
primary. And one of the
Yes, I've been on the
favorites.
trail.
So what do you see
Some
out
people
there?
say he's going to get it. There you
A
go.
lot of people came out to vote, exercise their right to vote, and that's a beautiful thing. I see a lot of young people being involved in terms of assisting their favorite candidates. That's a beautiful thing also, you know, but a lot of involvement basically.
The first numbers are in. You're doing good so far. How do you feel?
Well, like I said, I feel blessed. As long as I'm in, that's all that matters. Whether it's 7 or 1, it really don't matter to me. As long as I'm in, I can continue to represent the people, you know, and continue to do the work that I started from 2014. And I'm honored and privileged that they actually consider giving me another chance to represent them. So I'm happy about that.
Hey, just if you get back in, what's some of the things you want to do when you get back in?
Man, honestly, there's so much thing I have on my plate. One of the main things I want to do, honestly, though, is dealing with the young people and vocational education and vocational training. I started an initiative with a construction company in terms of trying to locate a building and actually outfitting that building out in order to make sure we have the proper tools, equipment, and certification to train those individuals so they can go out and actually help to rebuild our territory, because we know with all the money that's coming in, it's going to be the next 3 to 8 years before we can basically get back to where we need to be. So there's a lot of work that's going to have to be done, and we need to be prepared for that infusion of cash and make sure we participate when it comes to a level playing field and making sure our young people are involved in that infusion of cash.
Great, Senator. Anything else you want to add?
Well, honestly, I want to add that I really want to thank my campaign workers, my family, my friends for believing and supporting me. I want to thank those that gave me constructive criticism, those that honestly came out at the polls and worked hard on my behalf. I really want to thank them and tell them I'm truly grateful for their continued support, and I look forward, if successful, to representing them in the 33rd legislature and making sure that I complete a lot of legislation that I had on the table that's pretty impactful to our community, and many of them are bread and butter issues. I look forward to doing that.
Thank you so much, Senator.
Thank you so much. Have a blessed evening.
There you go, Senator Marvin Blyden, number 2 in the primaries and a current member of the 32nd legislature. Now, we just want to inform everybody that this is being transmitted to us via the internet. So sometimes the network kind of is getting bogged down, and that's why the decay in quality that you're seeing in some of our live reports coming in from the field, specifically the election system offices on St. Thomas and St. Croix. Before we go on a break, and I was hoping that we could have a little time so you could think about your answer to Dr. Randall's question, Senator Nelson, but we're going to take this time to hear what you have to say before we go on a break.
Well, most people, when asked the question about cannabis or legalization during the campaign trail, responded that they're willing to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
So would we have the numbers in a 33rd? Would they have the numbers in a 33rd legislature? I'm hopeful that we can still have it in the 32nd and in the lame duck.
Mm-hmm.
But again, without.
But if not,
If
you're
n-
calling to the people,
If
right?
not, it's up to the people. The people drive policy. So I'm asking the people to, to start calling those officers of those newly elected and let them know that you want this passed. I mean, it's not my bill; it's a bill for the territory, which I think makes a lot of sense. So, it's hard to pinpoint because I didn't interview them. I did not go to the forums, but I know when the question was asked, in most instances during public forums, almost everybody sort of give this sort of in-between answer. They did not say no. There's one candidate, and that's why I'm going to tell them the election is over now, but the Kofeld team, when you're going to talk like you want to lock up anybody that smoke weed, you can't get any, and I think that killed that team. Her position on cannabis itself allowed her to get no growth.
You got a lot of flack from a particular senator who stood in your way and was the vocal mouthpiece of the anti-cannabis. That person does not seem to be being elected. They're not running.
Not running.
Do you think there's any other loud opponent?
There's one, I know Senator Veerley was in opposition, and his only excuses, he said he was a principal.
School principal.
Yeah, but when it's one thing to don't give me that moral conversation when you support gambling and you support other initiatives that So I get it. This thing we're talking about is not for children, but besides that, there's been no real opposition per se besides Senator O'Reilly. I think most people were trying to tiptoe around her personal issues as it relates to their position on the issue in the 32nd.
All right, we're going to take this opportunity now that you've answered the delicate question. We're going to take a little break. You're watching Decision 2018, a live election night coverage by News 2. We'll be right back.